everyone, Nathaniel here, and welcome back to our bi-weekly report. September is over, and we have to report that we have not spent all of our funds for the month. Our illustrators have been caught in other activities related to real life or other projects, meaning that we only got 8 new illustrations out of the projected 10. However, the publishing rhythm has not been affected, and we will do our best to make sure it stays this way. We do hope we will catch up during this month, and we are also looking at recruiting more people to work on illustrations. For our archive section, we will be having a look at the schematic of the famous Tiger tank from the British War Office intelligence report from sometime in the middle of 1943. However, anyone familiar with the tank will observe some things that are seriously wrong with this drawing. First off, the turret is too far forward, which means that there is no space for the driver and radio operator hatches. These are shown to either side of the turret at the front, over the sponsons, in a position where they would not only be unreachable, but they would be so small that getting an arm out would be the best that you could hope for. Second off, the shape of the turret is wrong, as it should narrow towards the front of the vehicle. The British would capture a Tiger tank in April of 1943, but it is unclear if the schematic predated this event. Anyway, this is a clear illustration of the problems that usually appear when dealing with intelligence reports. These are not precise by their nature, and basing any kind of claim on these kinds of documents alone leads to quite uncertain ground. We would like to thank Captain Nemo for providing us with this interesting file. Now, let's have a look at the Tank War book, written by Mark Urban. Described as the British Band of Brothers, the Tank War follows the journey of the 5th Royal Tank Regiment during the Second World War, who found themselves driving mostly British cruiser tanks all the way from the fall of France in 1940 through the deserts of North Africa, the hills of Italy, and the French Bocage, to the final campaigning in Germany in 1945. The book closely follows the lives of half a dozen or so individuals from all walks of British life, starting when they were thrown together in the first months of World War II and the regular trials they faced. Particularly in the desert, the detailed and comprehensive accounts of the living conditions, regular tasks, and battle situations of individual members of the regiment blend to build a balanced and enthralling picture of the lives of the British tankies at war. The Tank War also reveals the relationship between man and machine that was built up throughout the campaigning. While many British soldiers would do anything to avoid the poor bloody infantry, the Tank War shows how the men viewed their different machines beyond the raw numbers often quoted, such as when air conditioning could be more to a soldier than armor thickness. Overall, the Tank War is a brilliant read for anyone interested in every aspect of tank warfare in the West, particularly how tankies lived, fought, and died on and off the battlefield. Now, let's go to the gaming world and have another look at the newest tank game on the market, the IL-2 Sturmovik Tank Cruise, Clash at Prokhorovka. This is a new part of the new IL-2 Sturmovik Battle game series, which does something quite interesting. Each game in this series can be played as a standalone game, or it can be combined with the other games, adding up their maps and vehicle pools. Of course, most IL-2 games are airplane simulators, with Tank Cruise being the first ground-based game in the series. Flyers hunting us on the ground again, yay. Tank Cruise is still in early access, so a lot of things are still unpolished and in need of some attention. But the developers are hard at work. The game currently costs a whopping $70, and this will go up to $80 after publication. While this does seem excessive, the game is aimed at the simulator crowd, not at the run-of-the-mill World of Tank gamers. As you can imagine, the game is focused on the Battle of Kursk, with 10 drivable vehicles, including the T-34 and Tiger, and more for the AI only. It features an expansive map of some 10,000 square kilometers, populated with enemy and allied tanks, armored cars, trucks, cars, trains, planes, anti-tank, and anti-aircraft guns. The interior of the vehicles will be fully modeled in the future, although currently some of the vehicles have it only partially modeled. Players can man the driver, gunner, commander, or machine gunner stations. In multiplayer, multiple gamers can man the same tank, each occupying one position. Tank Cruise is a simulator game, unlike the other tank games that we are familiar with. The UI is minimal, and the players have to choose between the restricted view afforded by the tank optics or the risk of poking their heads out of the hatches. Overall, for an early access game, Tank Cruise feels promising, but it still needs a lot of polishing in many aspects. The physics are slightly wonky at times, especially with regards to the tank's suspension and interaction with the terrain. During the playthrough, one truck flew off into the air after being shot off. The immersion is excellent, although the sound balance does need a bit of a touch-up. If you are interested in a World War II combined arms game that veers more towards simulator than War Thunder, this is probably the most current option. Although, it might be advisable to wait off for a small while and see the development, especially given the sizable price. We would like to thank our patron, Gollum, for supplying us with footage and his opinions on the game. We have had a couple of new articles that were added at the end of September. First up, we have the 120mm gun tank, the T-77. This was a heavy tank prototype featuring an oscillating turret and an auto-loading system, mounted on the hull of a T-48. Mounting a 120mm gun that was fed single-piece ammunition, it was able to achieve a fire rate of 30 rounds per minute. However, this was limited by the 18 rounds held in the hull and by the 8-round capacity of the autoloader. Due to the slow development, only 2 prototypes were made, and the project was scrapped. This article was brought to you by Mark Nash and illustrated by David Beaucalais. For our second article, we present to you the Vickers No. 1 and No. 2 tank. These tanks were developed in 1921 and 1922 respectively, with the requirement of being operational in tropical environments such as India and South America. Resembling the rhomboid shape of the British World War I tanks, these tanks were also designed with a domed turret on the top. The No. 1 tank was armed with 4 Hotchkiss machine guns, but due to overheating and poor reliability, the tank was returned to Vickers for refitting. The No. 2 tank was armed with the 3-pounder 47mm gun, but this was also eventually rejected and scrapped. Despite not reaching mass production, these 2 tanks were the next step in tank development, featuring a fully rotating turret similar to the Renault FT, a middling crew size of 5, and a dedicated gun for combating other tanks. This article was written by David Lister, and the illustrations were created by William Byrd and funded by Deadly Dilemma through our Patreon campaign. This is all for this week. If you haven't already, consider donating over on our Patreon. There's a link in the description. All of the funds are used to pay for the beautiful illustrations that accompany every one of our articles. Give us a like and subscribe on YouTube so you don't miss our reports or any of our future features. Also, please don't forget to check out our website for new articles, and you can also check us out on Facebook where we post interesting photos and questions, or on Twitter, Google+, Instagram, or Reddit. I'm Nathaniel, and until next time, keep us in your sights.